Joining us now is Governor Christie, who was tasked with the job of keeping governors in office and putting new Republicans in there. Governor, by any standard, you had a huge night last night.
Well, Republican governors had a huge night last night, and you know, you think about it, we were the exact opposite of the Senate map. We were defending two-thirds of the seats last night. 9 of the seats we were defending, the president won those states, 8 of those, won those states, 9 of them. We won 8 of those 9 races last night. So our governors did great. Our candidates did very well. Think about this. We wake up this morning with Republican governors in Massachusetts, in Illinois, in Arkansas, and in Maryland.
Look at that map right there. There seems to be more red than blue. Of course, your favorite color is red.
Yes, a lot more red than blue, and I love that map this morning. Looks absolutely fabulous.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, how do you explain what happened in Massachusetts and Maryland?
Well, I think it's a repudiation of big spending, big taxing policies by Governor Marty O'Malley in Maryland and Governor Deval Patrick in Massachusetts. People don't want it, and they saw in other states where there were Republican governors that they were delivering results, and that's what people want more than anything else. That's why the governors have done so well as compared to Washington.
Now, Governor, the next 2 years are very important. Of course, leading into the presidential race in 2016, what can we expect for Republicans to do over the next 2 years?
Well, listen, I think you'll see Republican governors continue to do what they've done over the last 4. That's why Rick Snyder got reelected in Michigan, Scott Walker in Wisconsin, Paul LePage in Maine, you know, because we do our jobs. And we make sure we get the job done. We don't have a lot of bickering and arguing and rancor. We get our job done. I think that's what you're going to see from governors over the next 2 years.
All right, without a telestrator, we'll ask you to provide color on some of these exit polls.
Yep.
Here it is. The question, feelings about the President Obama and how it relates to the governor's races and Senate races. 33% are dissatisfied. 27% are angry. 29% are satisfied. 11% enthusiastic. How did numbers like that play into the tactics and success that you had last night?
Well, I got to tell you, I think the president had less to do with what we did last night.
Really?
Yeah, I do. I think this was judged. That's at the federal level.
You mean we as in governor?
We as governors. I mean, I think what governors did last night was to show on their own individual records that they could do a great job, and people returned them to office. I heard all the labor unions out there who spent $150 million on governor's races. Wow. $150 million. They said they were going to get rid of Rick Scott. Tom Steyer spent $17 million last night. He didn't get rid of Rick Scott. They didn't get rid of Scott Walker. They didn't get rid of Rick Snyder. And they all said they were going to get rid of these guys. I think what it means is when Republican governors do their job, they get reelected.
Well, currently we've got our leader is a Democrat, Barack Obama, and so everything seems to reflect back on him. One of the other exit questions was, do you think things in this country are seriously off the track? 65% said yes. 31% said generally going in the right direction. But when you have two-thirds of the country saying we are in the ditch and we need to get somebody else driving or point us in the right direction, that's good for your side.
Of course it is. And it's a reflection of the president's lack of leadership. His lack of leadership abroad, his lack of leadership at home. And that's what it's a reflection of more than anything, Brian. I tell you, the biggest emotion I saw out, and I went to 37 states, was anxiety. I had one woman in Vero Beach, Florida, say to me, Governor, what's happened to our country? We used to control events. Now events control us. And that is directly reflective of the absolute vapid leadership of the President of the United States.
And you thought Ebola was the nail in the coffin. The way the President handled the Ebola situation really defined for you everything we didn't want in a leader.
Well, listen, what we decided to do in New Jersey was take a common sense approach. If you are exposed, if you're a healthcare worker and you're directly exposed to an Ebola patient, it is not too much to ask you to quarantine for 21 days when you get home to make sure we don't spread this disease.
Especially if you had a fever.
Of course. And the military is now doing that. And they don't even get exposed in the main to Ebola patients. So the president has just got this one wrong. The governors are feeling, again, as you talked about, a vacuum of leadership.
Sure.
And the governors are feeling it. We're proud in New Jersey to lead. We're proud that 7 or 8 states now have joined our lead, and the Department of Defense is implementing the New Jersey policy, not the White House policy.
When you look at what's going on in the power in this country, you've got now the Republicans in charge of the House and the Senate and a bunch of the state houses as well, and yet the President of the United States says it wasn't a repudiation. The map worked better for them. This Friday, he's going to be sitting down with all the leaders from both sides of both chambers. The conventional wisdom is he's probably not going to budge. But if he's smart, he would. He would try to get something done in the next 2 years because Americans don't want gridlock. We want something done.
Well, that's right, and that's why the governors did so well. The president needs to step up and finally lead. And work and compromise with these folks in the Congress. And, you know, we've seen this in the governor's mansions all over the country. Our governors have done the right thing. They've compromised where they needed to, but they've stood by their principles. They've gotten things done. And by the way now, there are 32 Republican governors in America out of 50. I mean, I don't know what the president calls that. And by the way, remember, the only places the president campaigned in the last week were for Democratic gubernatorial candidates. And except for Tom Wolf in Pennsylvania, none of them won.
Right.
Zero.
Hillary Clinton lost 17 elections, too, and the place she and her husband came to focus on, and that might be interesting. Also, when you look overseas, you might think, well, what does that do with the governor? Well, you had an attack in New Jersey, which was a terror attack from a lacrosse player gunned down because an angry Islamic extremist was angry about Iraq. And we had an axe attack on a cop, NYPD, about what's happening overseas. So what's happening over there and what the president does for the next 2 years is going to affect us over here.
Sure. Governors have to provide that kind of leadership in their states. Their citizens look to their governors, especially when you have a vacuum of leadership in the White House.
Governor, let's look now to 2016. I can't believe we're already talking about this. We just finished the midterms, but that was the headline in some of the newspapers this morning. Who's going to run in 2016? What are your predictions?
Don't know. I think it's a very hard decision for anybody to make to run for president. I think we should all take a deep breath. You know,
we can't. We only have 2 years.
I know it's very tight right now, but I think we should all take a deep breath and it's a very serious decision for anybody to make to run for president of the United States. People should do that deliberatively and then make whatever decision they think is best for themselves, their family, and our country.
The exit pollers yesterday did ask Republicans and Democrats who they like for president. We've got the results right here. Who do you think would be a good president? Rick Perry of Texas, governor there, 84% said yes. Jeb Bush, former governor of Florida, 79%. Rand Paul got 77%. Christie, would he make a good president? 69% say yes, you would. What do you make of that?
Well, I'm going to be taking all 69% of those people out to dinner tonight. It's extraordinarily wonderful of them. You know, listen, polls 2 years away from a race that I'm not even in really don't mean a whole lot to me, except I would like to be nice to those 69% of the people. They're good folks.
Governor, I'd say Rand Paul did a bunch of interviews this weekend, one of which was they played a clip of you telling that guy to sit down and shut up on the beach after saying it's been 2 years since Sandy, and look where we are in the rehab situation. He says, I'm not sure how that plays nationwide. What's your reaction to that?
It doesn't matter to me. I am who I am. I'm not going to change. If someone does that kind of thing publicly, they're going to get what they give. And that's what people in my state and across this country have gotten to learn about me. That's who I am. And I'm going to be direct and honest and blunt about how I feel about things. And I think, you know, people will judge me up or down based on that, but I don't worry about that kind of punditry analysis. It doesn't matter to me.
Sure. Christie, we know you've had a great night last night, a great morning today. He's the governor of my state of New Jersey.
Right.
Do I talk to you about the pothole in front of my house?
Yes. Write down the name of the street.
Okay. And we should have told him we changed the side of the room where the couch was. You had no idea.
No one called. No one wrote. We just moved the couch. I mean, I got a new couch.
It's fancy.
Well,
Very
you know what that means? You need to more often.
Well, good.
When we move the furniture.
Absolutely. You'll see me
You're
a lot.
welcome anytime.